racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got everything outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taking Anderson! Anderson's up top!
Oh my God! Oh, big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go! Oh no!
That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my God!
God, what?
Carolina, where the field is rolling out for the start of today's 400-lap race on this .625-mile racetrack. Here's the starting lineup. On the pole from Dawsonville, Georgia, in the number 9 Coors Ford qualifying and Winston Cup race from North Wilkesboro is underway. Everybody nicely through turns number 1 and 2 as Bill Elliott has the lead and Dale Earnhardt has jumped into second position, followed by Benny Parsons and Bobby Allison.
It's time for the first road course of the season here in the NASCAR iRacing series. We're headed to Sonoma, to wine country, although it looks a bit like a desert at the time of the year when this track was scanned. When NASCAR normally comes racing, it's full of grass all around. It's looking like a dust bowl, and it's going to be very slippery for drivers out there in the heat of California. My name is Ryan Jones, alongside me, Justin Prince and Jake Kennedy behind the scenes here on SimSpeed TV, bringing you this coverage on the iRacing eSports Network. And with the road course, Justin brings new names, and we could see some different faces towards the front of the field tonight.
Yes, indeed. Tonight, a lot of different names we normally do not see in competition this evening. Some drivers who run a lot of fixed competition entering tonight. Some of the drivers who have competed in second and third split NIS competitions on Friday nights get the chance to show what they can do tonight here on SimSpeed at the top split here with the road course racing. It can get pretty entertaining to see how some of these drivers adapt to some new faces around them and which of those new faces end up putting on a sparkling review.
Yeah, most certainly. Going to be a few questions over this race, and we'll get the answers in a few minutes' time when we get the green flag. So it's just 45 laps. It seems like a relatively short number, but don't forget, this is a road course, so the track is quite a bit longer than your regular mile-and-a-half ovals we go to. The average speed lower as well. What are the changes that was made at the Sonoma course for last year's NASCAR race here is they changed from the normal cup layout to the carousel layout. So instead of having a little chute at the back of the circuit, they take a right-hand turn and they dip down the hill through the carousel, which adds a few more corners to the track, but I think ultimately it takes away a couple passing opportunities.
Yeah, it can make this track pretty tricky, especially with the rim portion added about at least 20 seconds to the lap times as well when the Cup Series started using this layout back in 2019. Remember, the carousel was used in the past when this track opened in the late 1980s, early 1990s, up until about 1997, 1998. Then they inserted that chute. Now it's more of a rhythm flow track, similar to what you see with a bit of the technicalities of some other major endurance road courses, in fact. especially with that carousel that brings up a lot of treacherous parts and opportunities in turns 5 and turn 6. However, it does bring up a decent passing spot in turn 7 and still makes the best passing spot around the racetrack today in the final hairpin corner, turn 11 today here at this road course. Remember, 12 turns, 2.53 miles the circuit. That's just over 4 kilometers around this racetrack.
Yeah, it's a long way around this track, as you mentioned there. It's up there in terms of length. It's longer than Watkins Glen, most certainly. And Watkins is another track that they use a cup layout. They don't use the longest route around the track, and I wonder if that may change in years to come. Hey, look at who's at the top here in practice. Graham Boland. Now, we haven't seen him very much on a Friday night in the NASCAR iRacing Series this season, JP. But he's a very quick driver. He runs in the iRacing Coca-Cola Series.
Now, always very strong whenever he's on the racetrack. That time may be very difficult to touch. This is in qualifying, mind you.
Oh, yeah.
These drivers have just 5 minutes to set qualifying times, Ryan. Already nearly a full second quicker. And some of the names, keep in mind, these are some drivers we haven't seen too much in NIS competition, let alone on ovals this season. Wayne Bork is in second in qualifying. Ocean Walsh, we've seen him race a lot of times on the road courses. He's running with his oval team today. He's in third. And then you have Clifton Cockrell, who has been decent in the second split today, who rounds out the top 6. So there's many different drivers here today who are ready to go left and right and to make sure they can try and come away with the victory today.
Yeah, Wayne Burke. Keep an eye on him. As an Aussie, I recognize that name. He is an Australian and does very well on road courses. So here's how they light up. Ready for 45 laps here in Sonoma. Front row, Graham Boland, Wayne Burke. And behind them, Ocean Walsh and Garrett Maines, 3rd and 4th. Patrick Moose and Clifton Cockrell, 5th and 6th. Michael Abrams and Matt Carper starting off the 4th row of the grid. Then William Amshoff and Ty Ippolito starting from 9th and 10th.
Matthew Martell starts in 11th. Jonathan Hernandez in P12. Michael Scherer in P13. John Broussard moves his way up the top split in 14th with Pierre Jurczyk in 15th. David K. Hall is in 16th, and Jason Wallet, making his debut in top split this season, brings the Hillhaven Motorsports machine from 17th. Everybody else will start via provisionals. Adam Jocelyn 18th, Joseph Plant in 19th, and keep it on Richard Regan Jr. He rounds out the top 20.
Mitchell Lancaster starting just outside of that with Eric Myers. Vincent Picciotti starting from 23rd. Reggie Evans next to him. Daniel Jackson and Sean O'Brien Jr. Matthew Woods as well. Adam Jones and Lucas Brendamil, your top 30. And that is your 30-car field we have ready for the race. Now they've got a full lap under the pace car here, so we've got a little bit of time before we actually get the green flag. Weather conditions, it's very, very hot, typical of California. Maybe not this time of year, but 120 degrees Fahrenheit track temp. Air temp's not that bad, but that track temp is scorching.
And grip is always lacking when it comes to Sonoma, mind you. Whenever you reach the top end of the gears, and if you hit the brakes the wrong way, your car's likely sliding on corner entry. You're likely also spinning on corner exit. So this is very treacherous today for these competitors. Keep an eye on that wind speed as well. Already 17 kilometers an hour or so. That can mean some of the cars could gust around a little bit on some of these corners and have a harder time sticking around some of the elevated parts of the track today.
And you talk about the elevation changes. One thing I really love about Sonoma is that elevation change. It does bring about some interesting dynamics with some blind corners, especially up at turn 1. You rise over the crest, you can't see what's going on at the exit of the corner until you're at the apex and committed. Similarly so up at turn 4 as well. In fact, a very similar corner is turn 4. So you've got that to watch out for over the course of your race too, hoping there's no one making mistakes in front of you, leaving you with nowhere to go. And this is the carousel section, the section that was implemented for last year, will continue for this year in NASCAR competition. It's a long, sweeping, downhill, left-handed corner the car wants to get away from you. But you can carry quite a bit of speed through and out of it as a result of the fact that it comes down a pretty steep hill.
Yeah, you can set up some decent runs, especially if you're able to hit it just right coming off turn 6 in the last part of the carousel. But again, you have to remember, it is so rhythm-focused in turns 4, 5, and 6 in the carousel, where if you mess up any part of that, you're likely either sliding off into the hill, going behind the tire barrier, or sliding into said tire barrier. And remember, the S's also very treacherous, where many drivers have made mistakes regardless of the layouts here, Ryan.
One thing's for sure, this is going to be a very interesting race. We've got some new faces right throughout the field, and we've certainly got some new faces at the top. Graham Boland, though, is showing that he is fast, no matter where we race. So watch out for him. He'll be in control as a pace car. The iRacing.com Porsche safety car will dive out of the way on the entry of the final corner. Field in the hands of the number 18, Graham Boland, the Interstate Batteries Toyota Camry. Out of the final corner, he jumped on that throttle. Let's go racing in Sonoma. Good start for Boland, followed by Austin Walsh. So Wayne Burke's going to lose out and fall back to third as they come across the stripe. And up towards Sternwell we go.
And already a few drivers you've seen having some struggles in the corner. First side-by-side, Main's already stuck side-by-side with Patrick Moose. But at this part of the track, if you don't stick the preferred line, loses a lot of time, like right there.
And Maines keeps it off the fence, but losing a lot of time. Just getting fired off into the grass there. And Maines won last time out at Michigan. He won the week before that when we didn't broadcast as well. So he's on a fantastic run of form on a Friday night. And he's already got his hands full at the start of this one. He's now running in 10th place after starting from... Where did he start? I can't even see him.
Well, when it comes to Garrett Maines, he started in 4th position, but he talked about on the radio, Ryan, that he bottomed out as soon as he went really low through that second part of the S's in turns 3 and 3A. And if you don't hit that line right, you can absolutely slam on down as you get ready for the uphill portion on the exit of turn 3A. That's cost him a lot of space. And Bowen, meanwhile, he looks to try and check out from Walsh & Company.
Wayne Burke is sticking with him, and Austin Walsh as well, I should say. Top 3, look how close they are through the hairpin there at the end of lap number 1, showing some great competition between them. They fought a bit of a gap back to Patrick Moose, who's gained a spot off the start thanks to Garrett Maines falling back. Michael Abrams in 5th. So that's your top 5 after the first lap, and there's a couple of slow cars. Wonder if there was a bit of drama there down at the penultimate corner. Odom Simulation Replay is going to tell us what happened, JP.
And one of the main places for mistakes as well is the run off of turn 10 right here, because there's the chance you can hit the curb or the dust. That time Jackson went around in a second car, slammed hard into the tire barrier and concrete barriers. That was Sean O'Brien Jr. having to pull his car immediately off to the side of the racetrack because of that. Now, the 29th and 30th, while Bowen's having to deal with Walsh this time.
I think that 23 car was very unlucky and missed his tire bundle and went straight for concrete, so that'll be big damage to that car. Walsh poked his nose, potentially for a move, the double right-hander. He didn't go for it, but in fact, it looks like he's faster than Boland at the moment. So Boland's struggling for some pace, certainly early on, maybe struggling to fire those tires up a little bit and get some temperature into them despite the searing track temp. Either way, he wants some more pace because Walsh is all over him. Got really close there. Up at the final corner, comes from a long way back, but up the inside he goes. Very strong on the brakes. Can he clear him off the corner? You bet he can. So Ocean Walsh to the lead of the race on lap number 2, our new race leader here in Sonoma.
Now keep in mind, Ryan, couldn't tell if this is 100% serious, but when drivers were asking how fast was he on this track, Graham Bowen said he was using the fixed setup tonight. Remember, the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series not going to Sonoma today. In this series in 2020, just NIS competition. So that means a lot of the drivers you've seen in 2019, like Zelensky, like Kerwin, and many of the others, not in the field compared to 2019's addition to the carousel. Speaking of drivers who have shown performance in fixed setups, Abrams is still holding on to the top 5.
Yeah, well, obviously those Coca-Cola drivers, they spent a ridiculous, warranted amount of time.
Difficulty when it comes to building them as well. When you think about this, the amount of time you have to put in just to build a car for a road course is immense, because it's not the same concept you can do on an oval. You can't just simply take the base setup you had and bring it to a road course. You have a lot of things you have to adjust for, and it takes a lot of knowledge to get the job done. By the way, this car on screen with the 29 had some trouble, so has John Broussard with some trouble.
Yeah. Here's a replay. Ooh, around at the last corner for Peter Jurczyk there. Looks like he might have lost the rate of entry. Probably got hit from behind to bring that about. And then Broussard, oh, lost it on the straight. Slams the fence, and oh boy, I reckon that poor soul hit the fence trying to avoid him. Now, on the topic of Boland, another thing that he's probably doing that wouldn't surprise him a little bit, Justin, is underdriving the car right now.
Yeah, that's actually a great point, because it is a one-stopper on the fuel, as we talked about a little bit before tonight's race. It's also important to make sure, though, you can make sure the tires get there, because the fall-off, as we've seen, when you go for a one-stopper on the road courses, can be fairly immense. Up to an extra 1 to 2 seconds in the final 5 to 10 laps in a stint, for example. And at least a few seconds expected in minimum in the first 20 laps. So I think Bowen's, again, just being nice and calm, just trying to have fun here as they continue to race around. Just stay within range of the rest of the leaders here before he plans out his game plan. Oh, he was a 10th of a second slower the leader last time by.
The margin in the field already, the leader's running up through turn 5, 14th, 15th, coming across the stripe. This is Jocelyn Regan Jr. and Schuer just back there as well, battling away for position. And oh, that's wide, and Jocelyn's going to lose out as Regan Jr. slips on by up at the first corner. Just a slight mistake. Pinch the brakes, missed the apex. That was enough to open up the door for Regan Jr. to slip on by. Good battle for 6th place as well here. Garrett Maines trying to claw his way back towards the front. Looks up the inside on the brakes, struggles to pull it up. It seemed the car was just squirming, but he got it pulled up very nicely and pushed himself up into 6th for Kappa will fall to 7th.
Good simple move by the Elliott Saturday Esports Machine driver. But when you think about this too, when it comes to Garrett, you have to remember he isn't just trying to make road to pro. He has experience in pro competition. That being with iRacing's Rallycross series. So he's got road course experience, can be very strong on the road courses, and especially on the road courses with a lot of dirt at, say, Sonoma. So to say the very least, he's been thinking outside the oval, just like how Richard Regan Jr., who's also been strong in league racing on road courses, has been thinking outside said oval.
He's got to think about the car behind him at the moment, I think, because Michael Schuer looking like he wants to make the move. He was probably close enough, I reckon, to have a look up the inside, up at the hairpin, but he didn't go for it, erring on the side of caution for now. Your race lead now is a 2nd as well, by the way, as these guys really stretch apart up through the first few corners. That was a massive turn of speed in favor of Regan Jr. Behind them, the battle for 21st place as well. Matthew Woods, Peter Jurczyk, who we saw spin a little bit earlier on, and Matt Switzer for company as well.
Trouble for one of the ALD racing machines. This is Ty Ippolito, someone with a lot of experience in the NASCAR Ignite series. Losing a couple positions, was in 10th right before these sets of corners. It's the run up to turn 4, and you'll see what causes the damage here. Just lost the back end. If you hit the brakes too late, you can snap around just like that. And the hills actually damaged the car.
Yeah, front splitter now with some damage as he hit the embankment on the inside of the racing track. On board with Michael Schurz, who run through the S's. Pretty high speed, lots of changing of direction as you run through here. Got to be pretty accurate to your line. If you mess it up, you're going to put yourself off for the rest of the sequence. As Adam Jones up in front looked like he had that thing hanging out sideways through the corner. This hairpin's a little bit tricky, isn't it? There's no hard inside of the corner. Obviously you've got the apex, but those tyre bundles, if you're side by side, it's easy to get pushed into them.
You have to hit your braking mark near perfectly, especially if you're side by side to that part of the racetrack, Ryan, because if you lock out the brakes, or you're slamming into those tire barriers by snapping the car right, or you're slamming into the car side by side. Now keep in mind, you mentioned the corner apex of that as well, corner off especially. That's where there's two different ways. Some drivers prefer second gear, some prefer first gear where they can get an extra bit of rev, but it also burns up the rear tires more. So it all comes down to preference. Speaking of driver battles, though, at the same time, looks like third on back is pulled behind and pulled backwards in terms of time compared to Bolin. They've been losing 7/10 last time by.
They are Moose and Abrams driving to the back of Wayne Burke. So Burke is starting to fall away. Meanwhile, Graham Bolin is starting to move forward again and he's closing in on Walsh. So Bolin's car now starting to come back to him. The gap is now 7/10 of a second. It was out as much as about a second a lap or so ago.
Yeah, well, I mentioned Bolin potentially saving up there in the second spot. I think that's indeed been the case here. 3/10 quicker than Walsh last time by. And everybody else in this grouping was already in the 139s. Already the fall off nearly 2 full seconds, and we aren't even 10 laps in.
Yeah, the undercut is going to be massive here. So this is going to be a big talking point. Obviously, we've got to wait till the pit window opens, which is when you can first pit, fill the car up and make it to the end on fuel. But when that opens, expect a couple drivers to come straight into the lane, strap on the 4 fresh tyres, and look for a massive undercut and benefit on the few laps they're on fresh and the others are on old tyres. Now the flip side of the coin there is the earlier you pit, the more you're going to struggle at the end of the race.
And you also have to think about, if you pit too early, you might not be able to make it to the end on fuel, mind you. Remember, when they used to use the short chute here at this track, it used to be a 2-stopper with the 55-lapper. Not as easy now, just a simple 1-stopper, yes, but you have to make sure you plan out that stop accordingly. That's where a majority of the drivers may go today. So now those undercuts, yeah, it's going to be an absolute gamble, indeed, Ryan. But the undercut strategy may get you in front of these battles, let's say, if you feel like you've been held up for, say, 5-10 laps.
Certainly a really good battle of the lap times between the top two. Austin Walsh responded that lap and pulled it back out to a second, so he's not letting Bolin just reel him in easily. Michael Abrams not battling for lap time, battling for track position. Can't find a way by Patrick Moose, who I'd say is holding him up at the moment in this battle for what's going to be 4th place. Wayne Burke's just in front of them, but he's got a few car lengths over them. I don't think he's holding them up quite yet. If he was, not anymore. But he's hoping that Moose continues to hold up Abrams because he's the fastest of these 3 drivers right now.
And keep in mind, a lot of fans watching along may recognize the name Team Abrams streaming on Twitch right now. In fact, with his VR setup, showing his impatience there, setting it right up the inside to take the move on Moose.
Moose ends up really wide on the corner, sidestepping Abrams, who's climbed up from 7th place up into 4th now. Our biggest mover in the field thus far it's Adam Jones back in 14th. He started from 28th plus 14. So he's showing some really good pace at the moment. And he is absolutely demolishing the gap between the next two cars on the track, Ippolito and Martel. So he could pick up two more in just a moment's time.
Keep an eye on him at this point. Remember, you may be wondering where to get a little bit of damage. You may just see a graze of it on the front hood. He did bump and run somebody at least once in this race. His attempts may be a touch factor, but you can already see very confident on the brakes to be able to send an extra 10 to 20 feet deeper than everybody else. And it looks like he's going to get some positions here. Hernandez starting to let people go at the front of this group.
Indeed he is. Up in 11th, then look at that red car showing through the first corner. Does it look like there's a move that time? This is a four-way battle. Now for the 10th spot on the racetrack. These guys are 30 seconds off your leaders. The top 6 are incredibly fast. And oh, that's a mistake. Hernandez wide. And that is Adam Jones and Martel by. Jones going to go to the outside of Martel. Inside run for the sweeping left-hander. Picks up 2 spots there in the space of about a corner. Up into 11th.
Yeah, he's been not afraid to try and make passes to say very least, but up in front of them a little bit. Here's a look at what happened. Looks like Abrams able to also take away the bottom line heading into turn 7. He's now in 3rd position. Now, the 2015 NIS Fixed Overall Series champion, he's on the move. The problem is, he's 5.8 seconds behind the top 2.
Wayne Burke was held up by a couple of laps cars on that lap before the move, so that really hurt him and ultimately cost him the position. So he falls back to 4th, and he's going to have Patrick Moose for company. Michael Abrams on the charge, making that move on.
Not the top 20. So now there's at least one car without a front nose. That's just up the road, by the way. Speaking of up the road, still, Maines has been able to reel in that grouping 4 from back.
Yeah, last time by, he did a 1 minute 39.7. That's half a second quicker than Moose. And it's on par with Graham Bollard in 2nd. Austin Walk to the 38.9. It was blisteringly quick on the last lap.
Yeah, absolutely. And they've been nice and patient up towards the front. Here's the view of what happened with David K. Hall here. We mentioned no more front end on his race car. It was that car that slammed hard into the back end of Switzer as that incident happened just up the track. I don't think he had any idea what was about to happen, and the fact that the car was trying to lock up the brakes and slide off to the sand to recover.
Yeah, here's the onboard from the roof. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing he can do. He did end up off the track, but he was trying to figure out which way Switzer was going to go, and he chose the wrong way in the end. 23 in the background going around as well.
That's the thing, though, Ryan. He was committed to his line. He was expecting him, I think, to, well, not be there in part, but also you see him try and sweep up to the sand. I think he was expecting him to stay in the middle of the racetrack based on the fact he locked it up. Just not what happened here as the cones start to go a-flying in this grouping.
He use all the road you can on the entry of the last corner, which does involve a little bit of the pit road entry and a couple cones there. In the firing line, most certainly. Gap now out to 1.8 seconds between your 2 front runners, 6.7. Back to 3rd place, Abrams, 8 seconds. Back to this battle for 4th. Wayne Burke, Patrick Moose, and Garrett Maines now firmly up on the back bumper of that Chevrolet Camaro.
Thinking about Maines once again, wait until turn 7. That's been the best passing opportunity for a lot of these drivers today outside turn 11. He's got the raw pace, and drivers have been willing to give him the space. I think he's going to have that here as long as he gets a good amount of momentum right here off the corner, and just got that. Just not close enough though, Ryan, to be able to make that pass.
No, not quite. He got up to his back bumper on the middle of the corner, but generally for the move to not be frowned upon, there's a B-pillar rule. You've got to get up to the B-pillar, which is pretty much halfway alongside the car by the turning point for it to be deemed a fair move. Of course, in NASCAR, the rules are a little bit more lenient. There's a bit more beating and banging, and if you get your nose alongside, a lot of drivers expect the room to be given no matter how much overlap there is, similar to how they would run on an oval. Then at the last corner, change for position there is Clifton Cockrell. Clifton Cockrell loses out to William Anshoff.
There's a bit more of that give and take we're talking about right there. Cockrell starting to have his tires light up a little bit, fall off on pace. Let him go. Trouble for Hernandez, though, the 7 car. We've seen him slipping back. He just had some trouble off turn 10.
Getting it back up the speed and then immediately having to slow it down again. But that number 7 car now finding himself a little bit worse for wear. Replay. Is it a case of rear end stepping out? It is. And he overcorrected it, snapped, and we don't see it. But I think he slapped the tire bundle.
Yeah, you can see right in the middle of the curbs, that car was already unstable and bottoming out part of the way. Just snapped right into the tires, as you mentioned. Hard hit to the back end as well. That's going to affect the car the rest of the race. And now that car lost about 5 positions in the span of half a lap because of that.
You know, the back of the car certainly has damage, but it's mainly on the right rear, and it doesn't look too significant. He may have escaped without major issues, but there may be something underneath the bodywork that's harming him as he loses another spot. Battle for 12th, Adam Jones, Matthew Martell. Through the S's. Martell looking for a way in which he can slip on through. In fact, Martell's lost a couple spots on this lap already, so he's made a mistake somewhere in the opening half of the circuit.
Over the radio, we actually was indicating if you want to go on by, and that's what ended up happening, I think, in that battle a little bit. He was having a little bit. So I think at this point, Martell also feels like his car's falling off and does have a bit of right side damage. But that means one thing. Jones is back up to 12th. Next car up for grabs is Richard Regan Jr.'s up the road again for 11th.
His 4th place battle refuses to die. Oh, there we go, up the inside. Garrett Maines going to take away P5. Patrick Moose left him a lot of room. And Maines needed no second invitation. Put himself back inside the top 5 for the first time today since lap 1. But Moose just wasn't able to get close enough to Burke to make a move, and eventually loses out as a result. Burke doing a good job there to maintain a little gap. As you saw out of that corner, the corner where everyone's been struggling today, the attitude from Maines and from Moose as the rear end just oversteered around on them from the exit of the corner. They had to quickly snap it back into place.
Indeed. And remember, Maines is our points leader for NIS Open competition in 2020 for all NIS Open races, mind you, by more than 1,000 points nearly. He's been that strong and consistent. A lot of these tracks has been a top 5 machine. And NIS Open competition, it's just been whenever he's raced on a Friday night, we've seen how much bad luck, it seems, goes his way and how much he ends up having some trouble in some of the races. His better races have been on dates on the Wednesdays and on the Sundays for the past couple times.
Yeah, he's been trying all season long for performance on a Friday, and it finally came, didn't it? Over at Talladega a few weeks ago. Ever since then.
Oh! And Maines, I think, is starting to lose a bit of the brakes. That time really slid them hard and hit the back end of the 10 machine.
Wasn't a massive hit. It was sort of at the lowest speed point of the circuit. It was the back of his slide. But there's now damage to the back of Burke's car. The rear end just crumpled in a little bit.
I think Maines' car is okay, but I think right now something with the braking is off on the one car. He's really losing grip on corner apex. At this point, it's causing him to slide so much. At this point, may need a brake bias adjustment to try and bounce that car back with how much it snapped. He nearly ran over the back of Moose, mind you, in the battle for 5th position a few laps before this. He's been slipping and sliding so much.
Wayne Burke actually had a massive slide through the last corner that time as well. So, well, we're 16 laps into the race now. So, they've been going for close to half an hour. The brakes on the car will be starting to wear off. They don't have massive brake pedals on these things, brake cylinders on these things, but they are the largest of their options available to them. The tires, that's the big factor. The tires aren't gripping up, so when you're trying to slow down, they're just not biting. They're sliding incredibly easily, and the lap times have dropped off significantly for these guys. They're about 5 seconds off the previous best, which is incredible drop off. So not surprising to see these cars now sliding through the entry.
And the only drivers that haven't had this significant a fall off in the entire field, remember, the top 3. Walsh has been able to stay in the 140s. Bowen's been able to stay in the 140s. Abrams has been able to also stay in the 140s. So everybody else, they're absolutely struggling indeed here with how slick these tires have worn off. At this point, wouldn't be surprised to see some pit calls. Speaking of battles, though, look at this. Ty Polito's been reeled back in by Regan Jr.
He has. I'll just quickly finish off my point with Maines on the Friday night performance. Struggling early in the season, but he's won 3 of the last 6 races on a Friday night. So he's found some incredibly good form through the last 7, I should say. So he's definitely found a turn of speed and starting to challenge regularly and put in a very good potential championship run. As there's the move up at the last corner as the cone goes flying, and Richard Regan Jr. goes flying on by Ty Ippolito. Hey, you mentioned potentially starting to see some pit stops, but think about it, Justin. If we're 18 laps in and the drivers are struggling this much, you don't want to come in now because there's 28 laps to go. You're going to be even worse off at the end of the race. You've just got to stick it out, tough it out until at least halfway.
Yeah. And that's why I think at this point that took out the strategy of the 2-stopper that was so popular 2018 on backwards when it comes to time at this track, because you're going to lose too much time by taking the second pit stop you would have on the follow-up. So I think at this point most of the field probably going to split it in half. And Maines now, by the way, up into P4. Now it's going to become the test. What can Maines do now that he doesn't have a car to chase after here? Only has now 9 seconds to chase.
He's 15 seconds off the race lead. It's certainly not unattainable over 27 laps, but he needs to be pretty flawless to achieve it. Oyster Walsh is really starting to drive away from these guys now. Graham Boland's 4.1 seconds back. So we saw the gap seesawing a little bit for a little while. But since then, Walsh is starting to put his foot down and drive away. And Boland doesn't have much on offer for him at this point in time. Abrams only 1.7 back from him. And these guys, yeah, as you mentioned, they're 9 seconds up the road from Garrett Maines. So I wonder if he can get there, how close he can get. An undercut might work in his favor, gain him a couple seconds, depending how big it is. As the battles are a lot closer, and that was close for Lancaster. The battle for 14th.
Adam Jocelyn just up the road at the moment, and that's Jones who's now having his tires light off. Remember, he nearly got to the top 10. All of a sudden, I think with how deep he was sending on the brakes, he's now very loose, and the right rear's been burned off that car. He slipped all the way back to 13th, and now he's even slower than 14th and 15th, cars he breezed on by just about 5-10 laps ago.
Now remember, he started 28th, so he's worked his tyres hard, surely, just to get through the amount of cars he has.
It looks like there was a little bit of trouble there for Jocelyn as well. Lancaster nearly ran over the back end of him coming off of turn 4 as well. Things still getting pretty tricky here at Sonoma, to say the very least here.
Yes, when do you expect we'll see that pit window open up for these drivers? Obviously, you're looking at a potentially somewhere around halfway as a potentially being the first lap. So you want to come in because you don't want to be struggling at the end.
I would say in about 2-3 laps is probably a good ballpark at this point for a lot of these drivers. So expect, I think, again, a lot of these drivers to split the race in half, go from there. Others may go a couple laps longer to try and have fresher tires at the end and bounce back that way. Just have to wait and see. Keep in mind, Abrams is now the fastest car on the racetrack with a chance to claw back in second the next couple laps or so right before pit stops.
We'll get some car pictures back to you in a moment. Just having some technical issues on our end. Here in the land of Australia, home of the world's worst internet connection. Sim racing's brilliant, Justin. It's brilliant up until the fact you have some varying qualities of internet.
Bad luck for Wayne Bork. You mentioned his name and a few other names. Unfortunately, also hit with the same technical bug. He is now off the racetrack and just lost what could have been a top 5 run for him. On the good news, if there's any, it came at pit stop time. Abrams just opened up the pit window of the track. He's going for the undercut by a couple laps. Bowen coming in as well this time by after losing 5 seconds to the back end of Walsh the past 5 laps.
Yeah, not surprised to see Bowen coming in at this point. Obviously, we saw him losing a lot of time. He's got nothing really to lose. I think with the pace he naturally has, he'll be able to fend the guys off behind for quite some time if they do get to him late on. But nothing to lose from pitting a few laps earlier than potentially he planned and just seeing if he can get a big enough undercut to slip on by your race leader. So the Australians dropped from the server. So yeah, Wayne Burke going to be incredibly disappointed with that. He was having a fantastic run, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was holding on, I think, confidently, in fact, to probably a 4th or 5th place run, especially with the pace and the fact that he was starting to gain a little bit on Patrick Moose too. Absolute heartbreaker if you're him at this point, and absolutely frustrating with how strong he is. I think he'll try and get back on the racetrack. The problem is, he lost a lot of time, mind you, at least 2-3 laps minimum with this situation.
Hey, look, a race car. To 24 laps to go in this one. Couple laps away from halfway now. We apologize for that. Wayne Burke gets back in as well, but he is now running in 25th place. He'll be, well, immeasurably disappointed. Matt Forcarpo brings it to the lane.
One of the low-line machines has also been quietly pretty decent tonight in the Hot Lap podcast machine. Top 10 pace, however, was at least 9 seconds back to the next spot. Now this is where we also see the potential for some drivers try and come in, especially with Jones hanging it out right at the front of the group.
And third car in line brings it to pit. That was Adam Jocelyn. Tough pit entry too. You've got to make sure you get it slowed up because it's a very tight lane on the entry. And if you pinch a front brake, it's easy to understeer wide and slam into the concrete wall on the outside.
Remember a couple years ago, though, there was someone in the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series who managed to drift the whole way in that section. It's very difficult, yes. It's very easy to hit the barriers, yes. But some drivers, they just seem to find unique ways to get through it as Walsh is now into the pits.
And keeping a very close eye on how Garrett Boland performs. So Maines, in fact, has come in as well. Osen Walsh is in the lane. Boland's in the lane. Top three all in pits. So too Moose.
Remember, though, Abrams with a 2-lap undercut. He's going to blister by most of these cars except for Walsh. In fact, right to a battles near side-by-side. And now one of the Nexus Oval Team drivers ready for a bit of a scrap here out of the pits.
Well, I wonder if Abrams can hold this or not. He's got 2 laps extra on his tyres, which isn't too bad at the moment, but obviously we saw the drop off about 5 seconds after 20 laps, so it will become worth a couple tenths of a lap. Right now, they're pretty even, but the pace that Walsh has, you've got to think that surely he should be able to get back by him. But with clean air, who knows? Abrams' car might come alive.
I think the thing that Abrams is probably thinking, though, is based on what he's seen on the end of the run where he was a few tenths quicker than everybody inside the top 3. I wonder if he's thinking the time may even out and he might be able to keep up with Walsh. The problem is, Walsh better exit in turn 7, side by side to the S's. Smart to back off, though. You don't want to go side by side for the first case.
If these guys start battling or slow each other up, Graham Boland could join the fight. He's about 4 or 5 seconds back from him at the moment. Look how much more pace Walsh has for the penultimate corner. So much quicker. Up the inside, late on the brakes. He's left the door ajar at a Walsh. Didn't need much more room than that to get that one done. So Walsh, by the end of the lap, is back into the race lead. And he will start to run away with Boland 5 seconds back. Abrams should be in for a net benefit, though, in terms of the long run.
Yeah, this might get him potentially second spot because they pulled 5 seconds, mind you, on Graham Bowen. More pit stops, though. A few drivers going for the overcut. Cockrell amongst that. Regan Jr. also going for the overcut strategy.
Yeah, so those guys will be faster at the end of the race. Their tyres will have less wear on them compared to those around. Normally, 1 or 2 laps isn't massive in terms of overcut strategy. It's more the undercut, but with the amount of tyre wear and drop-off we've seen on this one, the overcut could be quite powerful today.
Indeed, especially since many of those drivers, remember, were in the top 10 and they haven't really been lost where they were position-wise. It's just the overall time. So it might get them a chance here, Ryan, to gain an extra spot or 2 over the course of a run if they play their cards right. The interesting thing is going to be, though, can Graham Bowen reel back in Abrams now after losing all that time in the pit stop window? Mind you, he had a faster pit lane time, faster pit stop time, but still lost a couple tenths of a second off the lane overall on the track.
Obviously, with pit lane incorporating that big corner that goes around the outside of the hairpin, It makes it incredibly easy to lose or gain time through there. And we're seeing a few variations in the pit times as a result. Now, here's a replay. Thanks to Motor Simulation. What's happened here? Mitchell Lancaster runs wide. And up the inside as the 12 was their contact.
Doesn't appear to be, but that was one of your new faster laps on the track.
Goes through.
Shop. But here's the thing with Amp you've seen there, though. A lot of wheel hop. Forced that mistake there. But new fastest lap. Ocean Walsh, a 136 flat. No one else has even touched that pace by half a second minimum.
Look at how much Walsh is starting to stretch here, Justin. Sorry. It's now 7 seconds to Bolin. And 2.3 to Abrams.
Yeah, I think he's trying to grow the gap as much as he can, try and gain as much time overall. Knowing the pace of Abrams on the longer run. Here's the thing, too. Lots of traffic may start to come into play because a lot of the drivers who are at the back end of the totem pole on the left side of the screen, they're just right in front of your race leaders. So they're going to have to deal with a lot of traffic, and if you don't have that traffic in the right lane, Ryan, each and every time, you can lose lots of time at the racetrack.
"20 laps to go here in Sonoma, and Daniel Jackson marks the achievement with a trip to the hills. I imagine rear end has overtaken the front on the exit of this corner. Easy to do because you want to get the power down as early as you can because you carry a lot of speed and it runs down all the way up to the next corner, but he just got it down too early.
Not a fun race for Dan Zilla, to say the very least. Now 2 laps down already, with still 20 laps to go. And by the way, has a ton of traffic around him too. So not the best of races. By the way, Bowen, off and clear in Lancaster, having to come down to the pit lane. This is his scheduled pit stop. Only one other car has not pitted in this race so far. Check that too. Peter Jurczyk, Reggie Evans are the only 2 who have not pit, but they're 23rd and 26th.
Yeah, they're a lap down as well, so unfortunately not going to find much gain. There's a pretty big limit on how far forward they can go. Wayne Burke has also gone a lap down now, unfortunately, and well, he was put a lap down by the internet connection issue earlier on. So he's back in 26. He'll probably try to get by these guys, but he won't be able to go much further forward, unfortunately.
Big trouble, though, for Regan Jr. He was inside top 10. Remember, one of the drivers who overcut by a couple laps on the tires had to use the tow truck for his Ford Mustang. And this is why. Massive bobble and a massive hit to the tire barriers. That is massive damage on his car.
And he's actually retired from the race as a result of that. So he will take no further part. Michael Abrams is doing a very good job, Justin, of maintaining good enough lap times where Graham Bowen is not reeling him in by a great length. He's slowly catching, but it's not massive. It's not incredibly noticeable. And in fact, there's damage to that number 18 JGR Toyota.
And that was just with the back end of Daniel Jackson, who, remember, just had that slide a couple laps ago, was struggling the S's, and he ran over the back end of the 22. Now, Bowen, you mentioned severe nose damage. That's definitely going to be concerned now for the 10th, potentially for the rest of this race, and potentially for that speed that is massively crushed in.
Yeah, I think you might see Bowler now fall away. That's going to severely hurt the aero, and it might hurt the engine performance as well. Might start to overheat if that's knocked the radiator. Battle for 10th place, Adam Jocelyn and Adam Jones. Battle the Adams. 3 tenths between them. Jones trying to find his way forward.
And remember, Jones used a lot of his tires up on the short run. On the last run, he was a full second quicker than Jocelyn last time by, though. See, though, if Jones is able to hold on to the car in the second half of this stint, especially since this is the points paying time. This is the chance to show what he can do and try and come away with a potential top 10, and he's not being patient with it. Didn't give him really any time to react there, Ryan, in that scenario, to say the very least. But look at this. More traffic is also coming into play with these battles, and this can also break up a lot of passes here. If the traffic doesn't move out of the preferred line, now that forces a drag race coming out to the front stretch.
And Clemente with the drag race. Woods will remain a 14th. These guys are pretty close. They're in a group of cars that are all on the same place on the racetrack at the moment.
Mind you, they've already been lapped by the leader. They're just behind him, mind you. And there are a lot of the lead lap cars who are not going to want to lose too much time here. Garrett Maines, for example, lost at least 3 seconds with a similar group just like this a couple laps ago. So if you're Abrams, you need to get by these 3 cars and quickly. He's now 5 car lengths behind the 15th place machine and Vincent Piacotti.
Ooh, here we go. Potentially. And not going to work out. Or did it?
It did. That was for 13th, Ryan. Now the question's going to be what work up for the traffic, especially since there's a car slow. That's Eric Myers on the brakes trying to let everybody go on the S's, who just stopped on the right side of the track and bundled everyone else up.
Myers was actually off the track at one point. He made a mistake, and that's why he was so slow. He did a good job to decide just to back out of it. Hey, look who's closing in on these guys from behind. Graham Boland. And Michael Abrams in the middle of him.
Last time by Bowen, the quicker of the drivers for a little bit there, 138.9. Did gain at least 0.8 of a second with the open track. And with how frustrated he got last time with traffic, curious to see how patient he is with the traffic this time, especially since they're still side by side now for 15th, 14th, and 15th just up the road from him.
Oh, bumps given, return serves being dished up as well. The 14 will lose out. Boland goes to the outside of him and he runs off the track. No grip out there. Through the grass he slides, he rejoins, but time lost as a result. He was not patient in that scenario. He tried to force the issue as Picciotti and Plant went side by side in front.
And already apologies over the radio coming for the 18 there with that pass attempt and the bumping and banging. That lost Bowen 2 seconds alone for that mistake. And there's respect right back given right there. Vincent letting him right on go, not going to hold him up for any time.
Hey, let's look from the gearbox. Not the gearbox.
We may have lost Ryan there for a split second.
You did. I'm back. Well, I was hoping we could look from the back of one of the lapped cars as Boland comes up to them because I want to get a good look at the damage from the front of that car. because it doesn't seem to be affecting him too much in terms of Abrams. He's just struggling to consistently gain, though, isn't he?
Yeah, the traffic has just been very thick for him to have to deal with this entire run, it seems. And every time he's reached them at the very worst possible times. With them bumping and banging, with them struggling to get through the S's and trying to make sure they don't snap loose. It's just not gone Bowens' way in the second half of this race. And this is, I think, kind of, again, what Abrams was hoping with the undercut was, at the very least, come away with second position. And if Bowen had these struggles, he might be able to hold on, but the tires would have equalized.
Yeah, I think Abrams may get away with it here in terms of potentially running in second place. You can see there. So it's the middle of the front splitter, just above it, in fact, that's got the damage. It looks like it's just above the radiator even, so he's managed to avoid any potential overheating issues there. But the front right, the front left have also been affected. The car flared out on the front left and pushed into the front right. So the whole front end of that car actually has been knocked out of place a little bit by the contact, and it will actually be hampering him quite a bit.
The good news is we're not at an oval where if he had that type of damage, Ryan, that car would likely be falling a lap down about now, based on timing of when the hit happened, because of how important the aerodynamics are. It's not as big of the road courses, but it absolutely can affect you with how the car handles in the corners, especially since the splitter isn't going to be as sealed as it was before, for it to give you that extra bit of grip in the corners. That car's been dancing around, mind you, too, with the hot heat. So anyone with that type of damage, struggling that just that little bit.
Two-thirds of the way through this race. Battle for 15th place is still pretty close. Plant moving his way forward after being involved in quite a few battles over the last few laps. He's trying to reel in Picchiotti for that 15th position. There's about a second between them as the gap opens and closes throughout the racetrack. Just starting to edge out now.
And look who's coming on to the left side of the screen. That's Garrett Maines flying his way up through the field already, communicating with fellow drivers. Based on what the traffic's had happen, he is coming and might have a chance to try and steal away third position. Let's try and make it back-to-back podium positions here on the broadcasted races. The question's going to be, though, is there enough time, and will Maines have that same issue we've seen at the end of the last stint where the rear tires went off and he struggled to maintain grip under braking?
Hey, where's Boland gone? Oh, there he is. You know what I had there? I had the camera on the pit lane view, Justin. So I couldn't see him on the racetrack. Thought he jumped out.
Welcome to iRacing Broadcasting School, folks. Owen is okay. Lancaster, meanwhile, he's been in this heavy scrap, it seems, for a little while, it seems, Ryan. With Matthew Woods, they've gone back and forth a couple times this run, have they not?
They have. They've been switching. Oh, Lancaster off the track, runs wide, throws it back over the curb, and that's going to cost him a good few seconds. And it's going to put some dirt on his tires as well as he runs off the track the next corner. Good measure. That car now is not going to handle very well. Here comes Picchiotti and Maines, the lead lap car, try to pick a way through these guys. As you see the replay, it's very tight in live pictures. In the end, Lancaster decides to just sidestep them and let them both go. Picchiotti will do a similar thing for Maines as he will go on by. And this is the danger for lead lap cars as, wow, Lancaster, he threw it back up the inside there on Picchiotti. And Picchiotti just said, mate, have it.
And it looked like Lancaster hit the curbing there. They're already having a communication conversation. I think at this point, Vincent is at the point where he's just wanting to let leaders go, while others, remember, they're thinking about their own positions in their own races here, and they're not realizing how tight it's been getting with some of these lead cars to the point where they've lost 1 to 2 seconds each time they've reached side-by-sides like that.
Yeah, it's just the nature, isn't it? So obviously on ovals, you don't quite have that same effect, you lose a little bit, but it's not as pronounced as on a road course, because on a road course, the preferred line is always to take as much as the racetrack as possible and use as much, basically, straight steering as you can. So you want to turn as little as you can, which scrubs the tires a minimal amount and keeps the car as a high speed. When you go side by side, you have to put a lot of steering angle in to leave room either on the inside or the outside. It scrubs the tires off, and the car slows down a lot. As a result, you can't carry as much speed through the corner. So on road courses, you do see huge drop-offs when you run side by side and get involved in those sorts of battles. And running defensive lines hurts you a lot as well.
Absolutely, and we've already seen it come into play a few times here. But now again, the focus has to go towards Abrams and Bowen. The question's going to be, can Bowen even get back up again to that Ford Mustang? He gained 3/10 last time by. The tires have gone into where the last time around this point of the run, that's where Abrams started to equalize and gain pace back for the end of the race. With the extra couple laps on the tires with the undercut call, they may equalize overall in time, in fact, based on the times they've been running.
Yeah, down to 2.9. Look at that. He's taken a huge chunk out this lap. He's starting to adapt and drive around the issues to the front of that car. That's a great shot of the last corner. If there's a grandstand there in real life, I would love to sit there when I one day visit this track, adding it to the list of my... I may as well just do a tour of the entire NASCAR season at this point. I want to go to most of them.
I don't believe there's a grandstand there. No, there actually isn't at all there. That's where some of the garage areas and inspection areas are. But on the hillsides, it's not just those grandstands. They also have, with the institution of the carousel, you know that bridge on the exit of turn 2, essentially, or off to turn 2? You can actually sit between there and the carousel section, so you're surrounded by cars in 3 different directions.
Fantastic, and some camping there on the inside too. There'll be caravans parked up there on the top of the hill. It's a pretty good place to watch racing from. The way the track warps in and around itself, you can generally get some good vantage points from what I've heard on various points on the circuit. So it was 8.9 seconds for Oyson Walsh, all the way out at the front of the race. He is...
Oh! He hit him again! That's the second time, Ryan, he's ran in the back into Daniel Jackson in the S's.
and Jay, behind the scenes, getting premature with the results there. Walsh may have a good lead, but he hasn't won it quite yet, Jay. Here's the replay of the contact. Bowen trying to get by the lapped car, who was much, much slower than Bowen. Did not adjust.
Remember, that's how he got the damage the first time, and this time he was screaming over the radio, move, move. Guess what? He did not move. He's been more cautious in the track in that section. Keep in mind, Jackson is 4 laps down with under 10 laps to go this time, and that lost Bowen all the time he'd gained the past couple times around.
Well, Bowen, that front end is certainly taking a beating, and I think you've got to say he's not been as patient as he could be with some of the laps cars, but also probably not put the preparation in that you normally would for one of these long races, certainly with his exploits in the top flight of racing on iRacing. He's running a setup that probably isn't suited to him, and as a result, he's trying to overdrive in some places and make up for lost time and making some mistakes that probably would have been avoided in some other scenarios. Hey, a little bit further back, battle for 19th, Michael Schiller, John Broussard. They're pretty close to the racetrack as they come towards the middle sector.
It's a battle between No Hood And right side damage, and it looks like No Hood wins that battle. Keep in mind, we mentioned the fact that aerodynamics isn't as big of a factor here at this track. There have been some races, there have been people in the history of this race who have crushed in their front noses in real life, mind you, Ryan, who came back from having to get all the damage repaired as much as they could, and came away with top 10 finishes alone here. It's the type of track you can make those types of performances.
Yes, certainly, and the issue for Boland now is there's no more pit stops in this race. There's only 9 laps to go, so any more damage he picks up going to be with him all the way to the end. Not going to be able to come down and get it repaired. It's around the outside there, picking up one of the laps cars. Gotta say, all the guys going a lap done done a fantastic job today of not getting involved too much in the lead lap battles. Of course, when you're having your own battle, it's a different scenario. And of course, there is no blue flags in NASCAR.
No, you don't get the blue flag, but you still have to be aware of your surroundings if you're lap traffic. Lead cars, we've seen it with Bowen especially, we've seen it with a couple others, do not like it when they lose all types of time in those types of battles. So if you see a leader go and you feel like you aren't going to match the pace, especially since there are no cautions here at Sonoma as talked about, 9 times out of 10 you let them go and race your own race. Just race the track instead of racing a battle against yourself and the lead lap car, who is probably internally blinking his lights. Keep in mind there's no headlights either on Cup cars.
Yeah, it's a big decal layer on these cars. Should clarify too, they do have cautions on road courses in real life.
Yes.
Boy, they've had some cautions on road courses in real life.
Yeah.
But in iRacing, in road racing at the moment, no caution system implemented. I'd love to say we're not far away from it, but I can wishfully think. The issue being, it's very hard to implement. I think a good caution system to road racing, similar to how they have an oval. The straight import of the oval rules don't quite work for road racing format. Throws big disadvantages out there for some competitors, pretty much on a polar opposite scale of what you'd see in real life. So I'm sure it's being worked on, but right now, when you head into a road course race, whether it be as part of the NASCAR iRacing series or part of an official road racing series on the iRacing official calendar, you've got to prepare for full stints, no interruptions to your pit strategy.
That's indeed having to be the focus, but remember, this car you see on the screen, the 10 machine, Wayne, remember, had that technical issue that cost him what could have been a top 5 run for him. He's has a chance to still gain some positions, despite being about 1 3/4 laps down. That car might be able to reel in Jason Wallet, Michael Schuler, John Broussard, as well as a couple others here in the next few laps or so to still recover a top 20 and still make sure he maintains iRating, of course, that being the overall driver rating on the iRacing service that determines what split you're actually in.
Yes. You know what we haven't talked about at all is the incident point factor. On an oval, obviously, if you pick up a few incident points, you've probably smashed the fence and done in your car and towed back to pit lane. On a road course, it's a whole other ball game. You could pick up off tracks, which is 1 incident point, very easily. Car contact is a 2 times at most of the case nowadays, but it's very easy to slowly accumulate over the course of a full-length race enough points to accidentally disqualify yourself from the running.
There is a couple different limitations brought in with the penalty system as well. With the incident count penalties, 17 incident points does trigger a drive-through penalty. No one has had that today here so far, Ryan, shockingly enough. 25 incident points leads to disqualification. No one's gotten up to that range as well. The only drivers that are not on track, mind you, the ones who have been in crashes, Daniel Jackson, I believe, may have been the only person in the entire field to have a second pit stop that was scheduled in the 30, who was the last car running, had to come in a couple times as well because he was involved in first lap incidences. Everyone else has been able to keep it off the sand and keep it straight. Keeping it straight forward. Bowen has been able to close on in back within 2 seconds just about again.
2.3 for a second there, now 2.5. And again, now he looks like he's really fast, but he's not being consistent. He's making mistakes. He's struggling with that damage, and he's not consistently reeling him in. And of course, when and if he gets there, he's got to pass him, and you bet Abrams is going to defend for second place. So Boland's really got his work cut out for him now with just 6 laps left on this one.
It's not going to be easy. Again, we've seen how much traffic management has come into play several times tonight. That has came at the wrong place at the wrong time, especially for Boland. But as well, it's just, again, going to be the difficulty of making sure he lines up the pass cleanly without being over-aggressive and leading to a collision. And especially since, remember, the incident limit we talked about, it's pretty clear based on the nose that at least 8 of those incident points may have come with tangling up with Daniel Jackson. So the question is going to be, is Graham Bowen okay on that mark as well? We have to wait and see. They're coming up to 5 to go this time for this battle.
Yeah, lapped cars could make a difference here. If either of these guys catch them in the wrong place, it's a massive benefit to the opposing driver. So Adam Jones is just off in front of Michael Abrams into the hairpin. He sidesteps, lets him go. So no hold up there. Ty Ippolito up there as well. And he's in 9th place, so there's only 8 cars in the lead lap now. That's the pace that Mason Walsh has, and I'd say your top 4 have done a spectacular job of keeping in touch. Patrick Moose is 38 seconds back in 5th. The other 3 cars on the lead lap are a minute plus behind. In fact, Cockrell in danger of going a lap down.
And this is just the nature of green flag racing on a road course when it comes to this type of racing. The best can put in lap times like this. Think about it this way. When the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series came here in 2019, a lot of the drivers took part in NAS Open and fixed competition. Guys like Bobby Zelensky, Casey Kerwin, and a few others, they had the ability to lap the field if they so could. And they had the opportunity many times to do so. Haven't seen that blistering pace tonight from a couple of the drivers, yes, but it's still near world record pace for some of these cars, mind you, Ryan.
There is a driver that we're missing today who has a world record at this track. I believe you mentioned it earlier, pre-broadcast, yep. Justin. Vicente Salas, who's someone we've seen in a number of races this season on a Friday night. Unfortunately not coming tonight. So, just to sort of bring a few up to speed, this is obviously an official series, iRating and safety rating on the line. This is probably one of the least run series over the course of the week in terms of available time slots. And then at the same time, it's one of the highest participation series over the course of the week as well. So there's only 5 time slots over the 7 days available for the open class, which is what we're broadcasting. And Friday night has become, along with Wednesday night, pretty much the strength of field night is where you get your highest rated drivers. It tends to switch between Wednesday and Friday each and every week, but we're broadcasting Friday night every single week on the iRacing Esports Network, bar for the occasional off week that the series has, or that one week where Jay accidentally decided that we couldn't broadcast. I forget why, but it was probably a good reason, as Reggie Evans, no. Ah, yes, that's right, the Coca-Cola series was on, and Justin wasn't available. Also, everyone was doing that instead of this. But it's been a fantastic series, and in the background, we're keeping track, by the way, of who's performed well. We don't show that graphic very often. We don't even have it ready for today. But at the end of the season, we'll take a look at it and we'll see who's done well. There's still like 20-odd weeks left to go into the series too. It follows the original 2020 NASCAR calendar for real life. So this week, we should have been road course racing out there in real world, but instead we're headed to Homestead. So if you ever want to see how the NASCAR season might have played out, I mean, this is where you head. iRacing Esports Network, 9 p.m. Friday, Eastern Time.
And of course, understand the circumstances of why we can't go there in 2020 in real world racing, of course. with what's been going on, but it's been a stellar race, mind you. Some great battles here coming to 3 laps to go. Even though this battle is 1 lap down, this grouping of cars has almost been chained together this entire race. Because of mistakes like Martell right there off into the stand again. Woods drives on by, there goes Plant, and there goes someone we haven't mentioned all race, Sean O'Brien with the pass.
Sean O'Brien Jr. Can he pick up a move on Plant as well? No, not quite. Plant missing the apex. Gonna give him a good exit though as a result. He's got damage to the front of his car as well. Although it's nowhere near as pronounced as Boland's damage. So these guys are going to take their battle for 14th right down to the end of the race. Maybe even 13th as well with Matthew Woods not too far off in the distance either.
I mean, based on what we've seen, there's a chance that Woods is real back in with a couple of laps based on how this battle has just fared out. Look on the bright side. We mentioned the 18 machine, we mentioned the 16. After they got buy-in away from Woods, they pulled away at least 15, 20 car lengths away from this battle after they were able to finally clear on by after 5, 10, 15 laps of battling with that group.
It's a 10.7 second margin for Austin Walsh now. You get the feeling he's no longer pushing the car and he's been in cruise control for quite some time. Because he stretched the margin very quickly and then it really plateaued. I think Walsh is not making any risks at the moment. Abrams is very much pushing and doing a good job as Boland still is not reeling him in. In fact, the margin is getting bigger between them at this point in time.
This is right about that time, remember, there's that tire split. Here's the thing, though, too. Boland had traffic to deal with. But Walsh, he's just put on a master class. As soon as he got the lead, just ran away from Abrams, ran away from Bowen, ran away from everybody else, and hasn't really had to deal with anybody except for the lap traffic. Has had the opportunity to just take it nice and easy. He's only got a couple more drivers to have to pass this entire race potentially in that traffic, and it's clean sailing from there to the victory.
Touch wood. I mean, he started from third. He got the good launch, and he was battling for the lead very early on with Boland. It took it away. Boland didn't fight him. We thought maybe that the 18 was underdriving the car, looking to come back with some fresher tyres later on, but not the case, even if he was trying. Jason Walsh, not only did he have the early race pace, he's got the late race pace as well. Car has been flawless over the entire run. As he comes out of the final corner, he's going to see the white flag, and that means 1 lap to go here on Sonoma Raceway. Thinking outside the oval, Jason Walsh showing us that he is the man to watch out for when we come road course racing in NASCAR.
Yeah, this has just been a dominant performance. He's talked about this in the past, too, with major series broadcasts and a few other things where road course racing is his primary side, with TDR specifically, and showed a lot of good speed, mind you, in 2019, that respective series ride. In 2020, focusing a little bit more on the oval side as ran some Road to Pro races here and there, and tonight has really flexed his muscles again in this Cup car to show that he's not just a road course racer. He's someone that, even on the wherever it is, whether it's been at Michigan in the Cup car, whether it's here, he can win anywhere, anytime.
Yeah, well, obviously, this being a primarily oval series, our rating's based off oval. When I take a glance at his number, he's number 5 in the server, meaning he's got the 5th highest R rating, so certainly his oval prowess is nothing to be sneezed at, and, well, he's got 2 laps cars in front. He'll either pass them very easily, or he won't take any risks as he rushes up to the back of Eric Myers, just sits in behind him through the S's, and if Myers doesn't sidestep, he does there. Lifts off on the racing line. In fact, that was a little bit dicey. Walsh gets by, though. Wayne Burke just off in front. Burke, unfortunately, going to be only 20th. He's going to be disappointed. No doubt about that. Through the final corner, then. Austin Walsh. Flawless drive. Convincing win. And a fantastic victory. He will pick up the win in Sonoma on the NASCAR iRacing Series on a Friday night.
Domination to the capital domination tonight from Walsh. Just made it look easy. Fastest car all night, Ryan. And good credit to Abrams, too. That undercut, he made it work.
Did indeed. Graham Boland will come home third in the end. And Maines in fourth after early issues, fighting back well. And Patrick Moose had his fair share of battles today. He ended up fifth.
I think if you're Nexus, you're going to be happy with Walsh showing the speed with his road course prowess, and Moose, a primary oval driver, holding on for the top 5 run. Give credit to Forkapah along with William Arnshaw, who have quietly kept the cars clean for their respective teams to come home as the last drivers on the lead lap in this race.
Yeah, I think finishing on the lead lap in this race is an achievement in itself. Only 7 drivers did so out of the 30 that began this one. Forkapah will come across in 6th. William Amshoff, the last car, he just held on to the lead lap. He crossed the line about 4 or 5 seconds in front of Owen Walsh. But he will come into the start-finish stripe. He will finish in 7th, which is a good result. And he will conclude the results here from Sonoma. Let's take a look at our full results then. At the end of 45 laps, that was a fantastic race. Margin of victory in the end was 9.9 seconds. He lost a bit of time on the last lap in his cruising control out at the front. Abrams second, Boland, Maines, Moosey top 5 as mentioned, and Forkapah at Amshoff. Clifton Cockrell ended up the first car a lap down ahead of Ty Ippolito and Adam Jones running out your top 10.
11 spot going to Mitchell Lancaster. Absolutely had a big-time battle throughout this race, it seemed, with Vincent Picchiotti in that position. Back and forth, they went all race for 11th and 12th. Matthew Woods came home in 13th. Joseph Plant comes home in 14th. Sean O'Brien in the 15th spot, with Matthew Martell in 16th. Matt Switzer recovered from some early race trouble for 17th, while John Broussard finished without a hood in 18th. Michael Shore finished in 19th. And Wayne Burke, give a shout out to him. 2 laps down, yes, but after technical issues, still recovered a top 20, Ryan.
Yeah, he did, and I think he can be happy with his comeback from that issue. Jason Wallach coming 21st, Peter Jersick, Eric Myers, Daniel Jackson, and the drivers that had some issues, Adam Jocelyn, Reggie Evans, Lucas, Brenda Mill, Richard Regan Jr., Jonathan Hernandez, and David Hall, making up your 30-car field. Well, Sonoma Raceway delivering another fantastic race. Owen Walsh, congratulations. You've turned up here at Sonoma, and you've put down a very dominating performance.
Yeah, that was... Well, Graham was in the fix set, so if he wasn't, he probably would have been at least 15 seconds ahead instead of behind, but I won't complain. I don't know. I'm usually quite good here compared to like Watkins Glen, so it's usually a big grind week for me because I'm a bit of a road ringer. But yeah, I really messed up qualifying, which was very frustrating. And then I just won the first few laps behind Graham. And then at the end of the first round, Michael Abrams started catching me, which was a bit worrying. But then I don't know, I just managed to pick it up the second run, and I made a lot of like little mistakes, but nothing too major, nothing that cost me too much. And then just working through traffic is always a big thing here.
Yeah, it certainly is. In terms of the traffic, how did they go today? Were they pretty respectful for you? Obviously, blue flags aren't a thing in NASCAR. Did you have any issues with anyone?
The biggest issue I had was in the last lap, so obviously that didn't really matter. There was one thing early in the race where Graham was right behind me, and I threw a pretty sketchy block at him after being slowed up quite a lot by a lap car. That was actually probably the worst of it. Usually they do just get out of the way. Sometimes you have to sit behind for a couple of corners to send them from a few car lengths back, but it's not too bad. I haven't been wrecked by any of them yet this week, so it's tolerable. It's no worse than it would be in like a multi-class race.
Yeah, indeed. Hey, so you mentioned you're a bit of a road course ringer. Justin was singing your praises as you're not a road course ringer. Well, obviously, you've done very well. You're very good on the road course, at least at Sonoma. You mentioned maybe some issues at Watkins Glen, but maybe we might see you back in a couple of the oval races, potentially on a Friday night.
Well, I do race ovals.
Yeah.
I'm just better on road courses. Like, I don't know. I might be able to get to the iRating I have now just racing ovals, but I'll probably be able to get quite a bit higher on road. But yeah, I usually race like Indy cars on oval. That's where most of it comes from. So really big tracks, road courses, short tracks. But then when I get to a place like, I don't know, Rockingham or Richmond, I'll usually be terrible.
Yeah, I echo that sentiment. So obviously we've got 2 more road course races coming up this season for the NASCAR iRacing Series. We head to the Roval. We also head to Watkins Glen. Surely your eyes set there and a return for you in this series.
Yeah, the Roval's probably a bit late in the year because I live in Ireland, so I'm not going to race at 2 a.m. during the school year. But obviously at the moment I'll keep racing through summer because I mean I have nothing better to do. So as long as we have setups, I'll keep running.
Hey, well, thank you for coming today, putting on a show and a clinic for everyone out there and everyone who is watching. Before we let you go, do you have anyone you want to give a thank you to or any sponsors that you run?
Just Nexus Esports and Jarrett Liebert because he built the setup.
All right. Hey, well, thank you for joining us and congratulations on a great win today.
Thanks.
Well, that was your winner, Ocean Walsh. Certainly a fantastic guy. That's not what I was trying to say, but I'm not going to retract that statement. Certainly a fantastic drive out there today. And hey, let's have a chat as well, Justin, to Michael Abrams, who came home in second place. Justin Prince caught up with him.
Yes, indeed. One of the storylines of the race tonight. Michael, coming into tonight, one of your first big races you've been a part of since a 3-year hiatus, fans have told us for tonight. How does it feel to come home at the top 3 tonight?
Really good. I was really impressed with the speed that we had in the car. I mean, we worked on the tire management, tried to keep the stability, and we got lucky there at the start. We got handed a couple of spots because the one car and somebody else got together right at the start. So I got 2 spots right out of that, and then we just kept working on tire management, trying to get more spots out of it. And then lap 20 came around. I saw my spotter, Kevin, he told me I was working on those guys, and we were making up time on them. So I figured I'd try and short pit and try and get some time on them on pit road, and it did work out for a little bit. I almost had the lead and almost led a lap, but didn't quite work out there. But we did get P2, so I was happy with that. Nothing else to say. I mean, it was a good comeback for me to coming back to open set racing in the NIS.
How difficult was it for this race overall tonight? You mentioned some of the strategy, you mentioned some of the battling, for example, but how difficult was it to try and prepare for a type of race such as this tonight? Because it's not easy to return to open racing at a road course, mind you.
For me, it's more about the track. It's kind of intuitive. I mean, I don't really focus on speed all that much, to be honest with you. When we come to these road courses, it's more about stability and just trying to manage the tires. If you got a balanced setup, it makes it way easier than it really has to be. It doesn't have to be that hard.
How was traffic management for you today?
A
because
little
that came
rough.
into play for a couple battles.
Yeah, it was a little rough, but it wasn't too bad. Everybody was pretty cordial. We were working through it all together, so it wasn't so bad.
Now, question I think a few drivers may be wondering is, will we see you back when we go back to the ovals in a couple weeks or so? Because based on the iRating total in the 5600s, you do have the total to compete in these top split events each Friday night, if you so choose.
That is the plan. Probably not every week for now, but the goal for me right now is try to get my iRating up so I can run Road to Pro next year. So that's the goal. So we'll keep working on it. If we're fast in these open races, we'll keep doing it.
Is there anyone you want to thank before we let you go?
Kevin, my spotter, everybody watching on stream, Aaron, Jake, all you guys, how's it going? Everybody who tuned in, Jeff Faviano, he helped me a lot in my earlier YouTube and Twitch days, and he actually popped in the stream for a little bit today, so I got to thank him as well.
Congratulations on the top 3 finish. Stellar job, including beating the Coke driver on a fix set.
Thank you.
Yeah. That was Michael Abrams coming home in second tonight. Back over to you, Ryan.
Well, with the top 2, happy with their performance. We were happy with the race we saw today. It was a great one as we headed out to Sonoma. Next week, we return to the ovals, return to normality for the NASCAR iRacing series. We head to Chicagoland Speedway with the never-ending left turn. There is not a single straight on that track. The back straight is, in fact, curved. So we look forward to that. Should be a cracking event. But for tonight, we'll do things as we normally do. We'll ask you to go and like the stream if you enjoyed it. Hit subscribe to the iRacing Esports Network. Go and subscribe to SimSpeed TV on YouTube as well while you're at it. We've got plenty more events coming up, including some more later on tonight if you can't sleep, if you're over in America. And from myself, Ryan Jones, from Justin Prince alongside me and Jay Kennedy behind the scenes, we thank you for tuning in. We say goodnight, and we'll see you next time.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction. He's going in the outside. Both of them. Maloney.
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up to him.
Oh my God. Big crash. Oh my goodness. Half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, here we go. Oh no.
That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?